Today, we're talking to two accidental landlords and how they went from hobby real estate investors to creating real income through portfolio expansion. I'm Kathy Fettke, and welcome to The Real Wealth Show.
You're listening to The Real Wealth Show with Kathy Fettke, the real estate investor's resource.
Today's guests, Steph and Sandy, share their incredible journey from renting out their homes out of necessity to strategically building wealth as partners. We'll talk about how they use their innate skills to balance their personal and professional partnership and how they're evaluating and determining what's next for their portfolio in this ever-changing market. Stephanie and Sandy, welcome to The Real Wealth Show.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Happy to be here.
It's just so good to see you after seeing you on the property tour in San Antonio. We had such a good time getting to know you and learning more about you. So let's introduce you to our audience. Maybe just starting with Stephanie, how you got started in real estate.
Okay. Well, my story may be similar to others. I kind of accidentally got into real estate, and that was mostly from buying my first home, living in it. And at the time, I was in the insurance catastrophe business, and I had to leave for work. So I rented my home out. And then over time, the area that I was living in became a very hot vacation market. And so fast forward life, I went to the short-term rental model for a little while. And I didn't realize I was starting a business in real estate, but it kind of just evolved that way. I wasn't as in tune to what was really happening. It was just, I needed my house rented while I had to go work. I didn't want to have to sell it. So that was how I pretty much got into real estate before I met Sandy. And then Sandy and I met in 2017. And she was living in Texas. I was in Florida, and she had a real estate license just kind of on the side. So we had a similar interest and just started talking about things. And then our story kind of goes from there of how we bought our first house.
Yeah, then I came and visited the area here in Santa Rosa Beach. And I was, at the time when we met, I was actually in the process of looking for an investment property in Texas, in San Antonio at the time. And I just couldn't find anything. And when I visited this area, I had never been to this area, and I fell in love with it. Of course, everything was ridiculously expensive, as it always has been. It's like always too expensive. And then I was here for a week, went back home, and literally a week later, Stephanie called me and she's like, "Hey, my neighbor's selling his house because he's going through a divorce. Are you interested?" And I was like, "Yes." She's like, "Well, can you come back and see it?" I'm like, "No, I want it. I don't care." But it was pretty much brand new. So that's how I was able to acquire the property right next to where Stephanie lived, which these two properties eventually accidentally became short-term rentals. We ended up moving to Pensacola, buying a house there.
And we did a live and flip there. I'm very fortunate. My stepfather's been in construction his whole life. He's built his own homes and done remodeling. So we bought, we wanted to be more in a little bit bigger home than in such a vacation market. So we bought a home in Pensacola. We redid the whole thing we lived in and fixed it up while we were living in it. And that's quite a challenge if anyone has been through that. It was all the way
no fun.
Yes, plumbing, electric, all the way down to the studs. It was challenging, but I tell you, when we looked up when we were done, and I sat down with Sandy and I said, the after repair value in this house, and I didn't even know what that was at the time. I learned that from following your model, Kathy, and learning all those terms and everything. Just really started to dive into real estate. I started reading all the books, and this was about 2021. And in 2023, it took me a little bit to get Sandy on board. I was like, I think we need to sell this house. I said, we have a lot of capital in here. We could really, accelerate what we want to try to do in retirement and start working towards replacing working incomes at some point, keep our jobs, but let's, plan for financial security for the future, and she's like, my beautiful house. No, we just built this house, it's perfect. I love it. No,
that was another conversation.
Yeah, that took a little bit of convincing, but we did. So
I was going to say, if your relationship can survive a live-in remodel and then selling it, then you're strong. You got this.
I can tell you, if your relationship can survive waking up in the morning to the sound of the blower inside your house, you can survive anything, because we had so much dust in the house that I wake up one morning and she's literally blowing inside the house with the doors open. I'm like, what are you doing?
Oh yeah, no, we've done it too. We turned our laundry room into a kitchen and sort of sealed
Yeah.
off the rest of the house. Found out, yeah, there's asbestos in there. I mean, it's a
Oh
lot.
my God. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's fun. I mean, when you look back, it's like, oh, we have been through a lot, and it's been a fun journey.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. It was when we started to decide to become intentional about it,
Yeah.
that things really changed. And Sandy and I like to get up in the morning. We usually have our coffee time together because her work schedule keeps her very busy during the day. So that's like my only time I get to like really, while she's fresh in the morning, have these discussions. And so that's the time we typically review things, talk about our goals, and it's real important to have that communication, I believe, because we learned, like if one of us is just going full force and the other one's just not really on board or kind of whatever, it's hard to stay focused on a path ahead. And
I love that you do that. So is it structured, these meetings, or just sort of a casual morning coffee conversation?
Yeah, I guess they're no longer structured because we do it every morning. So we kind of have
Wow.
a routine. We have our coffee. We typically, the evening before, she's already expressed, what she wants me to, I guess, review. Or like yesterday, she mentioned, I really want you to start reading Rocket Fuel. I'm like, okay.
Great book.
So that's like, since that is the time I have to, I guess, integrate with her on what she's staying up to date with. We'll discuss a little bit, and then I'll either start reading the book or start reading an article. She sent me an article today that I need to read
actually,
tomorrow.
that Joe did, our real wealth
Oh,
counselor.
wonderful. Yeah.
He wrote, so, yeah.
So which one of you is the integrator? Which one's the visionary?
Well, truthfully, I think I've been trying to do both. And I think Sandy would be a tremendous integrator. I think she's really good at processes and systems. My ideas and I get so almost overwhelmed with the visions that I want to do. And I notice I get frustrated because I'm having a hard time putting the processes in place to move forward with that vision. So,
Yep.
and Sandy, it just in the nature of her own career right now is excellent at that. And I'm like, hey, wait a minute, this could work if we look at it like a business.
When you can really create that rocket fuel, I'm telling you, get that book, Rocket Fuel, because there usually is one who's the visionary and wants things to happen quickly, but doesn't really know how to get those systems in place. And then the person who does know the systems is freaking out because the other person is going too fast or trying to go too fast. But when you can be on the same page, then that is when it does become like a rocket ship. And I love what you're saying of, being on the same ship, right?
Yeah, right.
Knowing what direction you want to go and how do we do this together? How do we get to our goals? So what are your goals at this point?
Well, at this point, our goals are to acquire more real estate. We've been doing we're, so I'll share, I don't know if I should share our age, but I guess I will. Why not? We're going to be 50 next year.
That young, huh? Wow.
This year. I'm sorry, this year. And we're 11 days apart in age. So it's kind of interesting, so we're like, okay, we wish we would have started this 10 years ago. Yes, but we did start now. So there is a little bit in the goal planning to try to get a little more working income replaced for Sandy's income right now, just so that if we could at least replace a portion of her income moving forward, she could become more of the integrator and spend more time because her job is very demanding, takes a lot of her time. So as much as we want a partnership together, there is the challenge. There's only so much time in a day. There's so much capacity and energy you have, to put into it. So we're trying to find that balance of slowly picking away at that so she could transition into more integrating, and we can do this as a team more full time. So that's one of the goals. I don't, it's still going to take time to get there, and we understand that and we see that, but to know that, hey, if we can follow this path, we could actually maybe get there is what motivates us.
How will you know you're there? How will you know when it's time?
That's a good question.
That's a great question.
We do this exercise every year, and we actually just did it this week, and we were a little late this year, where we we share notes on our phones and we write our goals. And then at the end of the year, we look and see what we accomplished and what we didn't, if we need to move it forward to this year. So we just finished that. As far as when we will accomplish,
when will we know? I think when Sandy can, like, because there's some days I think we could do it already, but it's like we know we want to keep working and keep that active income coming in because we want to make sure that we do have security long term. We don't want to cut it off too soon. So we're very grateful for, and we've worked hard to be in the position we're in to do this. And we understand this isn't an overnight success kind of thing. It's going to take time. So I think when we know we're going to get there is when I can look at Sandy and say, hey, we can actually take 2 weeks and take that trip to Europe we've always wanted to take, and we haven't been able to because you can't take that much time off of work, to go. I have been self-employed most of my life, and I've had an insurance agency where I do Medicare insurance, and so I have more freedom. And then there's times of years where I'm real busy too. So our ultimate goal is for the time. Of course, you want the financial freedom there, but the time is so important. We've experienced some things just this year with my nephew who's had to have a double lung transplant. Has been through leukemia. There's been a lot going on. We see how quickly life can change, and so there's a lot of motivation to do it quicker, but not do it irresponsibly quicker. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I would encourage you to really be clear on what it would take.
Mm-hmm.
Also, one thing that I like to advise people on is to do as much of the real estate transactions as you can while you are working, because it's easier to get the loan, right? When you've got that income. So having that clear map as to how many properties are we going to buy with loans, and let's get it done now before I quit, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I think, like at first, when we sold our primary home, we wanted to buy 7 homes. That was our goal. Well, then interest rates just shot up.
Yeah.
So we said, well, we're not going to be able to buy 7. Let's put more money down. And we ended up buying 3, or we bought 2 single family homes and 1 duplex. And we're not going to cash flow now either, like at all. So because of the rate. So what we had planned, and by the time we were able to put the plan in action, things had changed.
Yes.
So you just have to be able to, work within those changes and then kind of take a step back. And we're trying to stabilize all that right now and make sure, that's going to go good for a few months. And now we have, my home that I've had in Florida forever. It has equity, in there, and we're ready to deploy it. But we just want to be super careful, because we've learned too that, as you're going through the process, things can even change, even if you have the plan in place. So I think, honestly, I got a little gun shy now because I was ready to go again. Let's go buy 3 more, but I feel like I'm hitting a little bit of a wall because I'm a little, the underwriting and everything that was shown and how it's supposed to perform and what's actually happened is a little bit different. So I'm learning how to figure all that out.
Yeah, it's changing daily, right? Even with these fires in California that could affect insurance policies nationwide. Coming back to your goals and wanting to get to a point where you have that freedom, what are you looking at now that things, like you said, things change? You got to be looking at your plans all the time because the plans you made a few years ago or last year or last month
Right.
may be changing. So what are you kind of considering now?
So there's 2 different things we've considered. One is getting back into the short-term rental space, which I know sounds kind of crazy with rates, but if we could truly do it in, the right market, the right property, the right, really find the right deal, that might be a consideration just because it will help with the cash flow side of things. Or go ahead and go more to a linear market and not worry as much about the appreciation and pick up a couple of cash flowing properties to help kind of offset what we're not cash flowing right now, at least for the next, I don't know, maybe in the short term, and then again take that and go 2 or 3 more properties and back into appreciation, or just go ahead and get all the appreciation properties right now.
It's such a hard.
Keep the working incomes coming in, and don't take the risk in the short term space yet, and, keep building the foundation a little bit longer. So as you can see, we're still trying to map out.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's the discussions are so important. I mean, given just from what I know about you two, that you have Florida properties, you have
Mhm.
Texas properties, maybe having some in the Midwest that are higher cash flowing would be a good way to offset and to
Mhm.
balance out the portfolio and give you
Yeah,
some diversification.
and we have been looking at those markets, and are very interested just because of what Stephanie just mentioned.
Yeah.
Maybe we can offset and still be in a, I mean, because they are linear, but they still appreciate.
Mhm.
So that may be a good middle ground for
Right.
us
Good
for our
balance.
next venture.
Yeah, shockingly, some of those markets are actually appreciating
Yeah,
faster than appreciation markets,
Yeah.
and a lot of that has to do with builders not coming on, bringing new supply. That's kind of what we've seen in Florida and Texas. Is so much new supply; it needs to be absorbed. So it's taking a little bit longer, not everywhere, but in some cases, to rent your property when it's gone vacant. But in areas like, we're looking at another market near Indianapolis where there's just no new builders, and yet there's tremendous demand and a real need for housing. The whole Great Lakes area is considered to be less prone to climate change. So, looking at possibly Cleveland at Real Wealth, we've got a wonderful team in Cleveland. We've got a great group in Indianapolis. These, again, offer diversification. Having sat this week through the worst fire LA has ever experienced and somehow survived it, and we're very grateful. But so many of our friends didn't. And one of them had 3 properties in Malibu that all burned.
oh,
So, it's rough, right?
Very
Uh,
rough.
very.
yeah, yeah. So you might say, well, they had 3 properties in Malibu, can't be that bad. Well, it's pretty bad when they're all gone. So, we talk about diversification, but so often kind of forget to implement it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's why, we want to take a pause in buying anything else in Florida too. I mean, I've been through so many hurricanes and I'm kind of tired. I mean, I know
Yeah,
you can have them insured and you can rebuild. I even said that, and that's all fine, but it is an emotional toll that it takes on you as well.
yeah,
That, regardless if you have the financial backing to build that right
Yeah.
back, you have to go through those emotional,
Every
you
year
know,
we go through it, it's like, oh my gosh.
you know,
And
you,
then
you think you're fine, and then you start, well, there's, 10 named storms this year, and, here's this,
yeah.
yeah.
and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I want to be done.
Trust me, there's some fatigue here in California too right now. I think we're going to see a lot of people moving out.
Another reason we started thinking about, so just to circle back around the beginning of our story, I mentioned we sold our primary home to start investing in real
Mhm.
estate and do this. We're thinking about doing that again. We're thinking about selling everything in Florida, including because we moved into one of our short-term rentals is what we did when we sold the primary. Instead of going to buy another primary, we just took one of ours off the market and moved into it because that one was not a high performing short-term rental anyway. If we're here 2 years, then we don't have to worry about capital gains. So we think, well, we'll be here another year. Maybe we list this home. We do have equity in it as well because we've owned it for a while. And,
Mhm.
but then where do you go? Like, that's the big question. Well, where do you want to go? Where do
Yeah.
you want to live? So it's a lot of moving parts. And the sky's the limit depending on how uncomfortable you're willing to make yourself.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to keep in mind, and believe me, I have this conversation a lot with Rich, is you do have assets, which means you do have options, and um,
Yeah.
as much as I love California, uh, what would it be like to live somewhere cheaper, but then have the freedom to go wherever you want? I mean, you said
Mhm.
you want to go to Europe. Well, there's beaches there
Exactly.
too, right?
Talk about that a lot. I mean, this is a beautiful area, and I feel so lucky to have lived here as long as I have, and I've watched the growth here. I mean, this market's interesting. It goes really high, then it goes really low. I've seen the cycles, but I also, since I've been learning and following and trying to see what else is out there, I look at some of
Yeah.
these other areas and I go,
Yep.
wow, you can get what kind of house for what price? Like,
Yeah.
it's amazing, and then okay, well, then what's there? Well, I don't know, but if you have the freedom to go and do things you get enjoyment out of, and that's like your home base, how much.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not in a position where we have like children that are in school and we have to, we have the
Yep.
The freedom.
the ability
Mm-hmm.
to say, hey, let's go here for a week, or not. And it's really just not having the financial cash flow we want to have yet to be able to go take those trips, but we could probably make that happen if we're willing to let go of Santa Rosa Beach and maybe go to a different, more affordable area, And it's interesting when you're faced with that, kind of you're back up against the wall. Would you really do it? Like,
Yeah.
hey, yeah, okay, here's your answer. Can you do it? Would you do it? So
Yeah. And some of these areas have nice seasons, right? So let's say you move to Cleveland or something. The summers are lovely, right? And then you just maybe go do your traveling in the winters. But yeah, I think a lot of people will be rethinking life.
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
for sure. I think one thing that surfaces to our forefront is we come from very different backgrounds. In the way we grew up, my parents still live in the same house I grew up in.
Yeah.
Stephanie moved, was constantly moving growing up, so I
Mhm.
tend to get more attached to where we're living and more comfortable. And it's like, well, this is my home, right? And it's like,
Mhm.
oh gosh, we're gonna have to let go. So having
Mhm.
to and we are very extreme when it comes to that.
Yeah.
So having to, we often come and try to meet in the middle to where it's not so much you like, we're going to pick up and leave again, pick up, but also we have some stability in where we're at has sometimes been a challenge for us, but we've managed to, I've understood the power that we have with what we've invested on or in, unintentionally, and we've managed to now, at least for me, understand a little bit like, okay, I get it, I do get it, and she understands where I come from also, like, okay, I understand that you need your safe space. You need to
Yeah.
be able to have your home.
I love this. And one exercise that's really helped Rich and me, because opposites attract. That's what's so beautiful. Going
Yes.
back to the rocket fuel, this is what
Yes.
gives us an exciting life. Is I'm married to an oak tree. He doesn't move easily, right? He digs in, he puts in deep roots.
Yeah.
And there's just kind of no way to move him, but I've managed to do it on many occasions. So, but what helps us is for each of us to write down, and again, this changes because we change as we go through life and as we get older. And you're, like you said, you're turning 50. It's a new phase. It's a new place you're in, and so writing down separately, not together, the most important things to you. What's the most important thing? And having your top 5, and then maybe add 5 more that are kind of pretty important, but not like must-haves. Like the first 5 are my must-haves. The next 5 is like, I'd like to have this, but I could also live without or have it occasionally. And then the other things that this would be nice, but like I can live without it. So when we are looking for a place to live, we do that separately, and then we figure out what meets, what's similar.
I love that.
Yeah, that's
It's
great.
it's really helpful, because you might find, Sandy, that on your list is free time. If
Yeah.
that ends up coming up, that might supersede this feeling and need for stability, right?
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
spend some time in your next coffee break doing that.
Yeah. And
Separately.
at the end of the day, I mean, when you're in a good solid relationship, at the end of the day, your stability is within each other. Also,
Mhm.
it's within yourself, but
Yes.
within each other.
Mhm.
So as long as you have that, you can find home anywhere you go.
Yeah. I love it. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, that's so sweet.
I'm a crier, so
I was hoping we could get to that point. That's always good for an interview if we could have some tears. But all right. Well, any last tips for our listeners who are kind of feeling the same way? Like, what do I do? Things have changed. Is it still a good idea to invest in real estate? Is there something else I should be doing? I mean, what advice do you have?
My advice is just to try to stay as steadfast as possible. That know there's going to be changes. Know, you're not always going to know what the change is. But I think for me, the reserves are huge.
Yes.
Like that really, and don't go, don't try to get too risky because you're just going to stress yourself out way, way, way too much. So just, steadfast, day at a time, try to keep up with I am constantly following Real Wealth. I'm the Bigger Pockets. I love On the Market. I love those shows. It makes me feel like I'm staying current. And then, make your decisions, do the best you can with that, see them through. If they don't work out exactly how you were hoping, it's going to be okay, because I believe that real estate long term, it's in a way almost will eventually kind of correct itself, I
Yes.
guess would be a way to say it.
Yeah.
So if you can just stay long enough, and as much as when we first got into this, oh yeah, we're going to replace your income, and we realize very quickly that no, we need to keep working.
Yeah.
Let's keep that going, because the more we do that now, the quicker we'll get to our goals, and then the more fruitful they will be in the long term. So just
Yeah.
stay the course and change if you need to, but have your reserves.
And my advice is, because I since Stephanie is more in the day to day, you know, in the day to day stuff of real estate than I am, and I'm more of a outsider perspective. Or very often, is don't doubt yourself when things don't go exactly the way you thought they were going to go. I see Stephanie go through her ups and downs, like, oh my gosh, did I make them? You're not making mistakes. We're learning through all of this, and at the end of the day, our money is still well invested. Regardless, it's in real estate. It's well invested. We believe in real estate, and as long as you believe that, then you can't go wrong.
I love that. And nothing beats the security of reserves. You mentioned that a property took much longer to rent than you expected. We just had the same experience. And I think because these two areas, Texas and Florida, that have been so hot, so many people moving there, that there was a moment of overbuilding. I think it's going to correct itself. But your attitude was so awesome. Just like, yeah, that's part of it. We had the reserves. We were ready. We were okay. Now it's rented. You could take a breather. But knowing you have the reserves and knowing this is just part of the business takes away a lot of the stress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Love that. All right. Well, Stephanie and Sandy, it was so fun to get to see you again here, even though virtually.
awesome.
Hopefully we'll get to see you again on another Real Wealth tour or live event.
Yes,
For sure.
We
We look forward.
plan on attending. We're going to keep watching the calendar, and hopefully we can see you guys in person again. We really enjoy working with you and appreciate everything you do, all the time and energy you and Rich and your whole team puts out there. Really grateful for it. So thank you.
I did want to add one more thing. Rely on your mentor from Real Wealth. Joe has been amazing.
Yes.
When we doubt ourselves, we shoot him an email, we get on a call with him, and he's been nothing but patient with us. And I love his black and white advice. It's either, he's very factual, and we really, really need that. So rely on your Real Wealth advisors.
I love that. Yeah, they're all experienced. They've been through the ups and downs. They know how to navigate. But Joe in particular stays very steady,
Yes.
very calm.
It works well for us, because
It does.
if we get too emotional, it's like, yes, we need to call Joe.
Oh, I love that. That's so good. All right. Well, take care. And thank you
Thank you
again
so
for
much.
being here on The Real Wealth Show.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
Kathy. Take care.
And thank you for joining me here on The Real Wealth Show. If you want to talk to one of our fabulous investment counselors, it's free. Just go to realwealthshow.com where you can join. Again, no catch here. It's free to join Real Wealth, and you get access to our investment counselors. The way that we monetize Real Wealth is that we are a real estate brokerage and we are a referral network. So we have real estate agents across the country that we've worked with for, in some cases, over a decade. They come with tremendous experience, raving reviews from our members, and they pay us a referral fee. That's how it works, and that's why it's free for you. So again, just go to realwealthshow.com to get access to all those goodies, plus over 500 free webinars. Thanks again for joining me here on The Real Wealth Show, and we'll see you next time.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are provided for informational purposes only and should not be construed as an offer to buy or sell any securities or to make or consider any investment or course of action. For more information, go to realwealthshow.com.